nobody comes out of that film thinking, God, jazz teachers are such dicks, you know.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined by Barrett Scher from Cinemasins.
Hello.
And Jeremy is apparently going to join us a little bit later. But we have a very special guest today. It is music supervisor Andy Ross.
Yes.
Who we got in contact with through Scott Sava, who did Animal Crackers. We've done a couple of episodes on Animal Crackers, which is on Netflix now. But welcome, Andy.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. It's a real pleasure.
Yeah, I always love being able to talk to someone who has a job, especially like yours, that I'm not exactly sure what it is that you do.
Me neither. I have no idea either, so that's good. That's two of us.
Oh, good. So then my first question just gets thrown right out the window. I was going to ask you, though, what a music supervisor does, and you can tell me in broad terms if you want to.
Okay. Can I do something? You might not like this. Can I ask you what you think a music supervisor does? Seriously, because I'm very interested. What do you think we do?
Well, so I read a little bit on Wikipedia, but if you were to tell me before I read that Wikipedia entry, I would have said, you're the guy who kind of comes up with songs that the director wants to use and maybe gets rights to them or something like that, or puts the song in the right place in the movie.
It's pretty much, I mean, that's pretty much what it is, really. Although there's a lot more to it because every film's different, you know? So the role of a music supervisor is to oversee all music aspects of a film. So you have a composer, you have the songs in the film. There are often clips being used of, you know, from Getty Images or something, of the lunar landing or something, where there's sometimes music attached to that, which is often not cleared as part of the clip, which is very strange. But so we always have to look out for little clips. So anytime there's music in a film, we have to be aware of it and note it down. And often the director has selected a lot of songs that they want to use, or there are songs written into the script that they want to use. So sometimes I'm being reactive and trying to clear. When I say clear, I can go into that in a bit more detail in a minute, but trying to clear songs that the director wants, and then I'm filling in gaps, coming up with suggestions for other songs. Or there are sometimes when a director doesn't really know what kind of music they want, and then, you know, the palette's kind of mine to try and help them shape that. That doesn't happen very often. I'd say ordinarily I'm trying to find, you know, around half to a third of the music in a film.
Okay.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer directors that do have the big vision, or do you prefer somebody that gives you a clean slate and says, you know, here's what visually we're going for, but tell me what you think would work best here, there, and everywhere?
Well, personally, I love to facilitate the director's vision because I kind of find it the same as a director saying to the cameraman, I don't care what it looks like, just shoot it. It's, you know, because it seems odd to me. I mean, you hope that this person has a full vision for the film. Now, that's not negating a director that doesn't have this full vision, because some directors will say immediately, I love music, but I don't understand it, you know. So in that kind of instance, it's totally fine. There's no reason why a director has to know every facet of filmmaking. But one would hope, and I'd say 98% of the time it's the case, the needs, you know, there has to be a kind of vision for the music because it's so integral to the overall piece. So I prefer I love it when I'm facilitating. Now, it makes you look technically less of a hero, but it's never about that, really. I mean, the job to me is the love of music. I didn't know, like you guys, I've never heard of a music supervisor until I moved to America, which was 17 years ago. Maybe I'd heard about them a couple of years before, but I really had no idea it was a job. Wasn't growing up at 6 thinking, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be a music supervisor. God damn it. No. I didn't know what it was. So when I found out what it was, I kind of fell into it because I was a manager of bands, and I fell into it because I had to help clear songs. So when directors have a vision for the music, the thrill I get from being able to say to them, wow, within the budget that we have, I've managed to get you this song, which happened for Scott on Animal Crackers. They had picked the Queen song.
Mm-hmm.
For that scene. And my first thought when I saw it, I love Queen. I love that song to pieces. I'm very proud to have worked on a film with that song in it. But my first thought when I heard that is, thanks a lot, guys. How am I going to clear that? It's like, great. Whose idea was this? I've got Frank Sinatra covering the Beatles. It's like, great. Sounds brilliant. So it's but when I got that song, I mean, Scott will never forget me for that. And I spoke to the other director in Spain, and he was like, Andy, you got the Queen song. This is only last week. You got the Queen song. I never thought you'd get that. So that's so rewarding, because you've now pulled something off for the vision that the creator of the film has. And I love that. And I'd much rather do that. And, in every film, you're picking up the pieces, that you're filling in the songs in the gap, usually with very little money left. So all the big songs have taken the money, and then I have to come up with the other 4 songs with very little money. So I love doing that too. So in an ideal world, I would say 80% of the music is chosen by the director, and I pick up the other 20%. That would satisfy me. And I think it's just as difficult. Part of the skill of a music supervisor is being able to clear the music, license the music for the film, negotiate the fees, bring it in within a budget. That's as big a skill as somebody picking all of the music, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. And it looks like Jeremy is in.
Hey, howdy.
Jeremy.
Hey, Jeremy. Jeremy, meet Andy Ross, music supervisor extraordinaire and
Hello,
wonderful
Andy.
person.
Jeremy,
it's nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. And I just want to tell you, as I said to the other guys, I really love your podcasts. I love your enthusiasm for film, and I'm very pleased and honored to be here.
Oh, that means a lot. Thank you so much.
Well, the question I was going to ask after this was, you were talking about how it was such a miracle to get that Queen song. How did you get that Queen song?
Well,
if it's legal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because Scott has in his head a kind of vision of how it happened, and I think a little bit of it's a little bit fantastical. But now's the time to explain to everybody listening. So, if you want a song for a film, you have to approach the rights owners of that song. A song is split into 2. There's a master, or the recording, and there is the copyright of the song. So if we write a song now together, the 4 of us, we own that song, and if we sing it together, we own that recording. Now, if Elvis Presley covers our song, not likely, but if he did, if the song is covered by Britney Spears tomorrow, Britney Spears owns that recording of our song, okay? But we still own half of the song because we wrote it. So with the Queen song, I had to reach out to the record company who owns the recording, and I had to reach out to the publishers who own the song on behalf of the writers. So I had to go to the record company first and ask them to use the song, and they gave me an enormous quote of about a lot of money. I mean, six figures. So, and that's just for their half of it. So then I had to do a bit of finagling, and I said, okay, I know this song is worth an awful lot of money. However, we don't have a very big budget. This is a relatively small film. even though the cast is through
Yeah.
the roof.
Mhm.
But we need some help here, so please try and help us. They have to go to the artists for approval. So what I usually do in instances when the quotes are too high is I try to get to the management of the band and plead my case to them, because ultimately the members of Queen will have a lot of say in how much they would license their song for. I mean, it doesn't happen so much always, because you've got to remember a publishing company may have paid Dr. Dre, for example, $50 million for his publishing. So they have to try and recoup that. So the artist can't just carte blanche say, we've got to do it for this much money. But big artists pretty much can, to be honest. So we went to the management of Queen. We got them a clip of the scene. And basically, I said to the publisher and the record label, I think we could afford this much, which is still a sizable amount of money. It was a big part of the budget, but it was worth it because it was such an important song for the film. And they then agreed to do it for that price, and we managed to get the song, which was really good. But that's a tactic I often use. And again, you're appealing. You just want to make sure that before anybody turns down the use of a song or they overprice the use of a song, they've been given all of the information. Now, if Queen had turned around and said, we really don't like this project, fair enough. We've done all we can. But for somebody to say, no, I'm like, well, wait, who said no? Who was it that said no? Is that just you because you can't be asked to do it because it's not enough money to your top line? Or, that's not a good enough answer. I want to know why, and I'll respect it. Songs get turned down all the time. It's not my job to say, well, I think you're wrong. It's not my song. So I accept it and I respect it.
Did you ever have to do anything particularly insane to get a song cleared for a movie before? And I don't mean like he had to go through the traps of Saw or anything to do it, but I'm just saying.
Did you ever get hung outside a balcony from your
nearly
from your ankles?
I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm sure I might be able to answer this question later. I was trying to clear a Serge Gainsbourg song, and he cleared it. It was cleared immediately. And there was another writer on it who refused it. And I thought, and that's very unusual because it's like trying to clear a Sinatra song. He didn't write the songs, but the songwriters have made so much money thanks to Sinatra that they'll go along with his estate. And if the estate says, oh, we'll do this song for a tiny amount of money, the songwriter would usually say, okay, that's what they want. We respect that. So I was very surprised that this co-writer didn't agree to it, and it was really annoying because the director really, really wanted this song, and it was named, a person's character in the film was named after this song. So it was really odd to me. It was, if Serge Gainsbourg had turned it down, I'd think, we're done, we can't do anything. So then I realized that a member of Nick Cave's band had worked. I found out that a member of Nick Cave's band had worked with this guy, and my friend manages Nick Cave. So I contacted my friend and said, I really have to try and get to this guy and find out why he's so against using this song, because we have money to pay for it. It's not really a monetary thing. I don't understand why he's not agreeing to it. So the member of Nick Cave's band, thankfully, very kindly, just emailed this guy and said, is there any way that I can pass this guy's information on, because he's really passionate about this song? And that kind of got the wheels turning. And I've been trying to clear the song for like 3 months. I mean, I've been on it for a long time, and I was just hitting dead ends. And the publisher was saying, I'm really sorry, we're happy to use it, but we just can't get him to agree. And he hadn't. It was almost like there wasn't a solid no. It just, something was wrong about it for me. Anyway, somehow in the end, right at the last minute, he agreed to do it. So that's probably the most circuitous route I've been, especially as I was trying to enlist people that I didn't know. But again, it was great that somebody did contact him, but on a human level, it's not that big a deal, really.
Well, you've got that. You've really got to spin a lot of plates because you've got to keep the director happy, but you also have to keep your relationships within the music community, and you've got to pass along, the context of the movie and all that stuff. So you've got a very interesting balancing act between all these players within the movie itself.
It's hard, and there's another one to add as well. You've got I'm working for the director, but I'm hired by the producer, and they control the money. And the amount of films I've worked on when the director hasn't been told the budget that I have, and I'm not allowed to tell him or her.
What?
And I'm like, so it's very difficult because, and also you're right, with the publishers and record label, I never want to go behind these people's backs. I'm not trying to do that. But the way I justify it is it's for the art. I've loved music since I was 8 years old, 6 probably. I've loved music. And I am passionate about music. And I want to hear a no. And I'm not one of these belligerent people. As I said, I'll totally respect somebody saying no. Songs get turned down all the time. I totally respect it. I'm not going to push any further. I'm not going to be like, I'm going to phone his mum up, have a word with her, see what's going to happen. But the reality is you do have to spin a lot of plates. But I do have to. I don't think I've ever offended anybody in my pursuit of trying to clear a song, and I don't think I ever will, because I think it's pretty much over when the music supervisor says it's over, because if they've done their job correctly, they've unturned every stone to try and get the song cleared. And there are some songs when it's which battle do you want, pick your battle, really. But there are a lot of spinning plates, and the hardest thing is undermining these people that I work with every day, that I'm hitting up for quotes and things, because going behind their back and their bosses getting involved is never nice, and it's horrible. But that's why I go to the management of the artist, because the artist wrote the song, it's their song, everybody else is just in on it, but it came from them. It's like somebody's child. You can't tell me about my child. You can tell me, but it's not your decision, it's my decision.
Right.
There's a person that I sort of relate to you, but I don't know if the so-called job title is vastly different or whatever. But the first person I heard do this kind of work was T-Bone Burnett, because he's here in Nashville. And The Big Lebowski was a big one that he was on, and he's done a lot of Coen Brothers stuff and everything, but they credit him as an executive music producer, and I'm just assuming that it's the same kind of thing.
I wish.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so T-Bone Burnett, just a legendary musician. I was watching that Bob Dylan, that tour that they did. And T-Bone was the guitarist. What a film that is!
Oh wow.
Just incredible. So T-Bone's a musician. I'm not. I was a singer in a band back in the day, which means I'm not really a musician because I was a singer. So I don't really play instruments, and I'm not musically trained. Everything I pick up is by ear. T-Bone is an incredible musician. So I have executive music producer credits, usually from the fact that I've either brought financing to the project or I'm overseeing potentially, I hate to say I'm overseeing another music supervisor, but I've been brought on because it's a first-time person working on the film. It's a musician or something. I've been brought on just to really make sure that all the legal stuff is being dealt with and there's not going to be any problems. Somebody like T-Bone Burnett is a musical. He's very hands-on musically. I always think that a music producer is the equivalent to a film director. So T-Bone is intrinsic. If I organize a music session, I would hire really great musicians to do the session, but I would hire a T-Bone Burnett to run the session. Okay, so he might be writing the songs, he might be orchestrating, he might be doing whatever, but he is a creator of music. The music supervisor is never a creator of music, and this has been one of the reasons why music supervisors can't win Oscars. Is the Academy say that they don't create anything, and the Guild of Music Supervisors has been arguing, but they're intrinsic to the overall quality of the film. And the Emmys have now started recognizing music supervisors thanks to the great work of the Guild of Music Supervisors. You can now win an Emmy and you can now win a Grammy.
Oh, wow.
So, but the difference between T-Bone is he is a creative, he's a creative person on the show. He's totally different from me, and I bow down to him, and I'd be mesmerized to work with him, because to me that's my dream, is working with people like that. Doesn't mean we couldn't work hand in hand on a film together, as he's probably got other credits, and when he's working with the Coen brothers, he really is driving all of the music from a creative standpoint, and his team, my team would be like a backup to him.
Okay.
To dot the I's and cross the T's and say, we need to get this paperwork. Okay, get that. Okay, we've got to do a deal with this record label because this singer sung on the thing. So that's very much when my role becomes a back office role. When I'm a music supervisor, I have a creative role because I'm coming up with ideas. So I hope that answers that question.
I'm sure that there are a lot of things to dive into into that, but yeah, that does pretty much answer that question. That's I a lot of times I will see credits in movies and I'll be like, well, they just kind of, does that have an official designation, or is that just like this other thing that I've seen before? But you have said it straight. So
it's a musician, really. Marius de Vries did it on La La Land when because you're getting somebody that could potentially write. They tend to be music producers, which, as I say, then makes them kind of the music director in film terms. But obviously, a music director is slightly different. It's so crazy in the music world. As I say, a music producer to me is kind of the director, because he'll say to the band, great, here's your song. This is what I think we should do with the sound.
Yeah.
This is how we should make you sound. And this is how I'm going to do that.
And you brought up La La Land, and you've worked with Damien Chazelle before, right? You did. You were on Whiplash.
Indeed, yes. That was just a joy. What can I say?
All right. No, we're about to do 40 minutes on this movie. First of all, we should acknowledge that Jeremy is now here.
We did.
Did we really? Okay.
Yeah, we did just before. We did on the original recording.
We should still, like, every few minutes just acknowledge that I'm here.
Yeah, exactly.
He's still here, folks.
Hi, Jeremy.
It becomes a recurring joke.
All right, Whiplash. There's so much going on with Whiplash from a music point of view that I'm so very curious on how you integrated yourself, because it sounds like you work fairly closely with the directors of the projects, right? Because they're saying, we need this, and all that. So you, is that correct? Do you usually work fairly closely with the directors of the film itself? Usually, yeah. I mean, there are times when I hardly have any contact with the director, and that might be because a producer's running post. On films, people have. Does the director have final cut? Does the producer have final cut? So sometimes I've worked on films where I've hardly, where I've had 2 emails with the director and I've never met them. I mean, I often don't meet directors in person, but I have a big relationship with them on the phone and over the internet. But usually it's beneficial. For me, I'd like to have as much involvement with the director as possible, because again, I like to say, I'm here to facilitate whatever you have. I want to be honest with you, and I don't like going on complete wild goose chases. But believe me, I've been on a lot, and I'll fight the fight. But I just want to be honest with you and say, the chance of getting this song to me is 5%. Would you like me to go and try and get it? So I do like to work with directors. It varies.
but I think more often than not, it's pretty hands-on with directors. I mean, some films, you're dealing with source music, and that's all you're dealing with, which is the music, the songs that you're licensing into the film. Other times you're helping with the composer, helping finding a composer, and picking the director's brain. I love to talk to the director and come up with a brief to send to the composer agents, so that I've pulled out of the director's brain what they think they want to hear in their film, and then I try and translate it into a language that the composer agents will understand and everything. I mean, I'm not. It makes me sound like I'm translating a foreign language. I'm not, but I'm trying.
No. That's amazing, actually, because you in the obviously Damien Chazelle and Justin Hurwitz have worked together for a long time and probably knew each other going into Whiplash. But for other things where you're coming up with you're facilitating a composer, they have to know that context before they say, "Yeah, I'm going to do this," right?
Oh yeah, and again, I have to be able to, again, with low budget things, we can't get it wrong. We can't fire the composer because they're not doing it right. And the producers, I mean, it's hard, obviously the dancing about architecture, that the famous quote that thousands of people have claimed they mentioned. It's very hard to talk about music and explain what people are talking about. So I usually find I talk to the director, I get out of their mind without influencing them in any way. I'll have my opinions, and I'll just say, how do you hear the score? And the director might say, it's the one thing I love music. It's the one thing I just don't know how to explain what I'm talking about. And I'll say, well, often the directors put in temp music, which composers often hate that, but it's practically a norm now. So for a cut, you just use music from The Social Network or, Chariots of Fire or something, because it has the energy you need for the scene. So usually you get an idea from producers and director how happy they are with the temp music that's in the film, if it's doing the job that they need it to do. And if I feel that it's not at all, I'll subtly say, have you thought about maybe something like this here? So again, I'm not ever trying to force things in, but people need help often.
Yeah. And
they need, I look at myself as a moderator between the producers. I'm always in between people. I'm often a bridge between the directors and the producers, and I'm often a bridge between the producers and the composer, because the producers have to give notes. So you'll get a composer will write a cue, which I always think it's best if the director gives the first notes to the composer, and then they're happy with the cue, and then they let the producers hear it, and then the producers give notes. But the producer notes could suddenly be, oh, well, I really don't like that at all. It's just not working. And then you're like, well, we don't have a lot of time to keep changing that. So it's very important to get everybody on the same page at the beginning, if possible. And then you have to set up these sort of, my job very much, and this is the coldness of my job, is ticking boxes. I have 15 cues of songs, and there's 60 cues of score. How many have we ticked off today? 20. Great, we're on schedule. And then you have to say to people, you can't go back and change this. The composer has to keep writing, and then at the end, if there's any time, the composer can go back to that. And it's hard to tell your bosses that.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell your bosses you can't tell somebody you can't do this. I got fired from a film because I had to explain. I worked for a company that invested money in movies to own the music rights, which is how I ended up working on Whiplash, because that was one of the films that the company invested money in. So, but there were parameters of the deal that stated that our company would do music services on the film. So but the director would say, but I want to hire this person. I'd say, well, you can hire that person, but that's extra money. So anyway, you can't, not that I would ever, you don't want to tell anybody you can't do this, but you're working for somebody. But you have to set down guidelines, because from my experience, I would say to them, you can do whatever you want, but I'm just telling you, it's likely to cost you a lot more money. And then they'll go, I get that. Okay. So I'm sorry, I've forgotten the question, but maybe
I think I may attempt too, but it was a nice answer. In the case of Whiplash, though, where it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, everything is kind of homegrown because Hurwitz and Chazelle seem to have worked together. I think they worked together on that first movie.
They went to university together. Madeline on a park bench.
Park bench, yeah.
They went to university together and were great buddies from then on. So while Damien was talking about the idea of his films, Justin was talking about how he was going to score the films.
Right, so, and they work so. Everything is so enmeshed musically. The music is the story for that movie. There was there another orchestrator that did the big band, the Caravan and the Whiplash and that kind of thing.
Yeah, Tim Simonek. So let me try and explain the genesis of the whole thing. So I get given the script and I read the script, and I obviously read a lot of scripts, and a lot of scripts are not very good. Okay, the film could turn out pretty good of a not very good script. You know, you could think, wow, I wasn't mad on that script, but this has turned into a really good film. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert on scripts, but a lot of the times I think to myself, wow, somebody's making a film from this script, you know, and it's like, you know, and it's kind of, you know, but when I read Whiplash, I just thought, wow, this is great. I thought, and I loved it that it was in the world of jazz. Now, I love jazz. I'm definitely not that jazz head that can tell you who the drummer was on that session with Charlie Parker and this and that. So I'm not a jazz head because, again, it would insult people. I can't tell you everything. I love Miles Davis. You know, I love a guy called Abdullah Ibrahim and Township Jazz from South Africa. I love jazz because, to me, my wife loves classical music. Classical music doesn't touch my soul like jazz does. So I would put on jazz music to relax and chill out, and just it takes me somewhere. So that's how I love jazz. But I would say Damien Chazelle is way more of a jazz head than me, for example. But I love jazz. So when I read this script, I was thinking, God, I'm going to get to work on a film with loads of jazz music. That's amazing. But my worry was that Charlie Parker's name was mentioned so many times in the script that I thought, you know, there better be some money in this budget to do this. And knowing that my company had invested money, I knew that there wasn't likely to be a lot unless there was already some money in the producer's budget and they'd used our company to top up the budget. So my worry was, okay, this needs to be music at the level of Charlie Parker, which is, you know, slightly scary. So the first meeting we had with the producers over at Bold was very interesting because Damien was there, and I came into the room and we sat down and all had a nice chat. And then I said, so what's the budget? And they told me the budget, which I'm not even sure I should say what it was. It was about 1/10 of what we paid for that Queen song.
Wow.
So I was thinking, okay, so that's the budget. And I was thinking to myself, I know really killer musicians for sure that have won Grammys and everything that, you know, I mean, the thing about musicians is you get in a room with really great musicians to record a song and they do it once. And then I'm like, okay, should we go for this? And they're like, we've done it. And you're like, oh, well, what are we going to do now? You know, I mean, I say to them, it must be so boring being this good. Didn't you love playing music? I mean, isn't that why you did it? And you do everything in one take? So, I mean, I know musicians that can play stuff like that, but I was thinking, you know, we're talking about some of the best musicians in the world that we're going to need to do this. So then I remembered, I said to them, okay, let me go away and get my head around this, because they were saying, how would you do this? And I said, well, we have to record everything beforehand. I said, it's just too dangerous to do this. There's so much music flying around. And I said, there's so many little beats and breaks and stop and start and everything. I said, we'd have to record everything. And Damien said, that's what I was thinking. And that's what I want to do, really, is have everything recorded prior. So I said, okay, let me go and think about this, because obviously the big band sequences were huge. So I went away, and then I thought, oh, this guy came in the other day to see me called Tim Simonek, and he's the orchestrator for Michael Giacchino.
Oh,
He's
wow.
been around forever. And he's an amazing guy, and I'll be very brief about his story. I love this man to bits, and I love his wife, Janet. I mean, we became great friends over this film. He, back in the day, he's in his 60s now. Back in the day, he was wanting to become a composer, and he was knocking around Hollywood trying to get in there and do everything. He got a big opportunity to work for Mike Post, who I'm sure you know, Hill Street Blues, you know, just every theme tune ever written. Look him up, Mike Post. I mean, he must be one of the richest men in America, seriously. I mean,
it's one of my favorite themes of all time is that Hill Street Blues thing.
Just look him up, what he's done. I mean, I can't, for some reason I'm blanking, but every theme from then, he did it. So Tim had this opportunity to work with Mike Post, and he went for a meeting, and it was all great. And Mike said, okay, so you can start next week. Well, then Tim started feeling ill, and he went to the hospital and realized he had a tumor.
Oh, God.
Near his spine. And they told him, we have to operate quickly. And he's in his 20s. So they said, this could kill you. This could paralyze you for life. They said, but we have to get rid of this thing. So this is a few days before he's meant to start working with Mike Post. So he went in and he came back, and it paralyzed him, his arm and his leg and everything. And he was lying in the hospital bed, and his wife met him in the hospital, actually. She came to visit somebody else in the bed next door, and he was being really sassy and sort of a bit mean. And she was saying, you know, he was saying, I'm going to take you out. And she said, you can't even walk. You know, she wasn't being horrible to him, but he was being so sort of mean kind of to her. Anyway, they ended up going out together. But he said, I'm going to be able to conduct again. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a composer, and I'm going to conduct. So time goes on. He does this. So he works for Michael Giacchino, and he conducts all of Michael's scores, and he orchestrates them all. So he'd come into the office to meet me and said, I really want to do more scoring and stuff. So let me know if anything comes up. So about a week later, I phone him up, and I think, well, this guy's going to know the musicians because he's been around them forever. And he's worked all over the world. You know, he knows them in Europe. He knows them in everywhere. Australia. He's talking to me about this orchestra in Australia the other day. So I phoned him up and I said, listen, I've got this project. Are you into jazz? And he said, my favorite music's big band jazz. And I said, well, I think I've got a gig for you.
Wow.
So I said, I don't have a lot of money, but we have to make the music to the level of Charlie Parker. I said, you're going to have to write some original songs. Can you do that? And he said, totally. I said, you won't be scoring the film, because there's this composer called Justin Hurwitz. I said, but you'll be responsible with me for all of the jazz music that we're going to record. So he's my T-Bone Burnett, you see. He's now my facilitator. So I said to him, okay, so you're on board for this money. You can do it for this. We can record all the music for this. And he said, yeah, let me just look it up. So then my next meeting with the producers and Damien a couple of weeks later, I walked in, and they have a kind of music guy at Bold. And I said, so I found this guy, Tim Simonek, and the music guy at Bold said, he's going to do this film? And I said, yeah. He said, within our budget? And I said, yeah. And he said, okay, guys, we can forget about the music. It's taken care of.
Wow. So he was aware, huh?
Oh, yeah. Totally aware of him, you know, and so Damien, I introduced Damien to him, and they started working together on the songs. And then, you know, we got budgets together for all the music, and we liaised well with Justin, because what Justin was doing, which it was really fascinating, what he did on Whiplash, was he was doing the score, and he wrote a couple of jazz pieces himself. But he was doing the score, but his vision and Damien's vision had always been to sample the recording sessions and create a score from the samples of the recording session, which I didn't understand what they were talking about at the time. I was like, what's Justin doing over there by that drum? He's taking stuff from it. So he literally took a lot of the session stuff and entwined it into his score, which was really fascinating.
Interesting.
So yeah, Tim Simonek became the guy that did the songs that facilitated the brilliance of Charlie Parker.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow. So those were the Caravan, Whiplash, and things like that. It's not really based on anything. Those are original pieces, correct?
No, Damien. Okay, so the other thing I need to tell you is I've never worked with anybody that has such attention to detail as Damien. Damien, everybody that won awards or everybody involved in this film, it's all Damien, because every single beat of this film he had envisaged it. So every single person was facilitating what he wanted, and he's such a beautiful person to work with that it would be like, okay, so we have to do this, and this, and he knew, he can write music and everything, so he knew everything that he was doing. So he just brought everything to the table. Whiplash and Caravan are songs that existed, and Damien used to play them when he was in a jazz band.
Wow.
So he basically brought those to the table. So Caravan, for example, and Whiplash, the song, we had to license the publishing for those two songs. And there's a story in that, because Whiplash was pretty straightforward. Caravan, I had to license it, and it's very difficult when you have a script and you're doing, these are all called on cameras because they're performed music on camera. So you can cut them out in the edit suite, but you're pretty much tied to them. You can't redo the footage. That's why you pre-record them, because you have no control over the music. You can't alter it. So when you're reading a script and you need to clear a song, you have to send a thing called a quote request. And in that quote request, it tells you the description of the scene and the duration of the use. Now, it's very difficult to know from script pages how long a song's going to be.
Sure.
And also, if you're stopping and starting, if you play a song and then have a gap of about 50 seconds because people are talking in the lobby or something, that's an interrupted use. So, and you have to tell them this. You have to be very accurate with what you're trying to license. So you try to give people the script pages. So you say to them, here are the script pages. You tell me if you think this is different from how I've described it to you. So I cleared the song for a fee, which I thought was a very reasonable fee. And then when the film was finished, the head of the publishing company saw the film and said, how much did we get for that song at Sundance? And they said this much, and he went mad. He said,
oh, no.
It's going to be a lot more than that. So I get this phone call after I've had a signed piece of paper saying, we've got a problem with this song. And I'm like, what do you mean we've got a problem with this song? You told me this was all fine. And it wasn't. And it went, the fee, let's put it this way, 2 noughts were added to the number.
Oh, Jesus.
So I then had to phone my boss and say, don't know how to tell you this, but we've got a problem. And I said, but we have a signed piece of paper, so I think we can all, work this out. So again, I'm not trying to get people into trouble, because there is no, how people value something is how they value it. It was one of those unfortunate situations where in good faith, everybody's acted correctly. And nobody was saying to me, you're responsible for this. And these things blow over because it's the cost of doing business, as it were. And it all worked out in the end. But at the time, it was horrible, because I was saying, because nobody ever wants to litigate. So what always happens is there's some deal made, So that was a bit of a curveball that occurred at that I hadn't foreseen, which again shows that it doesn't matter how much you plan for stuff, there is an element of surprise because we're dealing with art.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, they were saying, but I didn't realize how much the song was involved in the film. And to me, the reason I think they say that is because the song is so brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And brilliantly performed,
Yeah,
too.
and again, it's worth money. It is worth money. And I would say at the end that probably they were 10% over what was really reasonable. Okay? So, and you always want to be looking out for the artist in the world I'm in. And it blew over into something that didn't matter. I only bring this up because these are the rigors of my job. And you can imagine how stressful that is when you've suddenly got this film that people are going, you know, they say no hit, no writ, don't they? But we had covered ourselves. I'd covered myself properly and I'd been through the correct protocol. So it was quite scary.
Yeah.
The situation.
And this is why you win an award for that, correct?
Yeah,
you won an award for Whiplash, right?
It was a sympathy award. Yeah. Yeah. It was like, oh, you have the stress. Your hair turned white. Oh, my hair fell out. My beard turned white. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I did win an award for that, and it was a team award, in my opinion. I know people always say that, but I mean, I was fortunate to work on such a magnificent film, and I'm very proud of my involvement in it because, and here's the crazy thing, I haven't watched that film since I finished it.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
saving it for my two daughters. I want to watch it with them.
Oh,
wow.
And I want to, because you see a film so often when you're working on it in various stages. You know, you might see a film and it's 2.5 hours long and it turns out to be an hour and a half long in the end. So you keep watching it and by the end of it, you're kind of bored of it. I remember going to the screening when it was finished and thinking, wow, you know, it's like, wow. But I'm really looking forward to watching it again. But I want to watch it, want to sit down and say, see what you think of this. But I'm very, very proud of the music in that film. And it was teamwork. It was fantastic teamwork from everybody involved musically. The music editor, let me tell you this. So a music editor is a person that I can send them a song and say, can you put this in this scene and make this sound good? And they'll send it back and I'll think, how did they do that? How did they move the voice and do this and do that? And, you know, because I'm just thinking I can move it a couple of seconds to the right or a couple of seconds to the left. So a music editor can just, I mean, it's unbelievable the things that music editors can do. And Richard Henderson, his name was, he was amazing because he was every single note and drum beat and everything that we recorded. He was in charge of that on the set. And he was in charge of that in post so that the editor could say, oh, was it this file or that file? I don't know. I'm having a spliff. I have no idea. You know, it's just music. I mean, he was like absolutely knew everything. And he was a hugely unsung hero because the amount of files that we ended up recording for all of the big band stuff was incredible. And he was on it completely. There was never a sort of hiccup. And Damien was totally on it. You see, if Damien didn't know what he was doing, there'd have been so many moving parts that it could have fallen apart. But because he knew, because the leader was so, and if he had been wishy-washy, I don't know, what do we do with this? I mean, when we were doing the recording session, we were phoning up the producers saying, we need another 20 minutes. It's going to cost more money. Can we do this other 20 minutes? We need another 20 minutes. We need another this. It's going to cost, we need to keep the horns. We need to do this. You know, so if we didn't know what we were doing, it would have been a disaster. So his vision, I mean, he's 98% of that film, I think. And that goes, you know, you think of the performances were just incredible. But you'll ask, you know, J.K. Simmons, ask him, he'll say the same as me, I'm quite sure. I mean, he'll say, well, it was laid out there in front of me. And I'm not saying that they weren't remarkable.
Yeah.
They were remarkable, but everybody had a lot of good stuff to work with. And none of us, I don't think any of us had a clue that this film was going to be seen, would turn out like it did, and that people would love it. But I think, Barrett, I was saying to you in a conversation earlier that it's got nothing to do with music in a way, this film. I mean, you have these jazz people I've talked to that love the film, and then I was working with this jazz professor from Dartmouth, and I said, "Oh, what did you think of Whiplash?" And he's like, I don't really want to ruin our friendship, but I just, it's just not how we are. And I said, yeah, but that's not the point.
Right.
Nobody thinks that, nobody comes out of that film thinking, God, jazz teachers are such dicks, I mean, they just don't. It could be athletes, it could be runners, it could be swimmers, it could be anything. It's just being pushed to the level. And J.K. Simmons' character, I kind of, I went to boarding school, so I know what it's like to get pushed to the limit with straps and things. And the point is, I kind of admire that in a way, because it is bullying, but it's trying to get excellence.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's the tightrope of that movie. I can't wait for you to watch this again, by the way, because it's going to blow your mind. That's the tightrope of that movie, is that every time you watch it, and I've watched it a million times, you can root for Fletcher, you can root for J.K. Simmons' character in one time, and then you can absolutely hate him the next time.
Right.
Because he's wrong, but he's right, but he's wrong.
Yeah, he's wrong. And he is wrong. He is wrong.
Yeah. Yes.
But
yes.
Can I ask you, so when you first watched that movie, what did you think? What did you know about it, and what did you think?
I knew very little about it. I knew nothing of Damien Chazelle at the time. Maybe had seen Miles Teller in something, and of course knew J.K. Simmons. But all I had seen was really the spectacular, iconic images of Fletcher in that black shirt, just absolutely eye fucking the shit out of Miles Teller. That's the delicate way to put that poster. But immediately when I saw it, because I have a music background, and I've had personally a few teachers like that, a chorus teacher and a band teacher that were like that, and I was immediately transfixed. I was nervous and stressed the entire time, but I was enthralled, and the music itself is what just really hit me in the boys. Like it just really, I love that type of music, and I love that sort of precision. And so, yeah, immediately I was a proselytizer of that film, and have watched it several times since.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this sounds weird because Cinemasins and everything, but I've seen a few people who've commented on it, like jazz musicians and stuff. And the things they're picking out, again, you just think, but you're really missing the point.
Yes.
Because it's not, there can never, somebody saying, well, when they show the close-ups of his wrist, that's not really how you, and you're like, no, but I mean, the semantics of that, it doesn't matter because it works. I remember the car crash scene, right? I hope that's not a spoiler.
No.
The car crash scene, I remember reading that in the script thinking, that's never going to stay, right? Thinking, I've got to get rid of that. Because that seemed to me to be unbelievable. And it kind of is. But I think with great films is when you're in, you're in.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, again, you guys would know more than anybody else. You can let things slide. And I don't know what you thought about that car crash scene, but for me, I thought to me that would never make it to the final cut.
Oh, here's the thing. When I saw that, I was like, oh, come on. That was the first time I saw that. I was like, oh, come on. But then because I love that movie so much as well, you start making excuses for it, and you say, well, this guy is so driven, and he's popped up on so much adrenaline. He could do that, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what you end up saying. Like, yeah, even though that's impossible, it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how he would do it probably.
Yeah. How the sequence unfolds is that, he's screaming at this guy on the phone before it happens. And then you see him almost in real time, like almost bleeding out to where he literally can't make that hand go anymore.
Mhm.
Right.
And it's like, that's the only thing that will slow this guy down, is where he physically cannot do this. And so, yes, you're right. It is an "are you kidding me" type of thing, but also it plays perfectly.
Well,
It
and then
plays perfectly.
like, that's the thing. Chazelle's not done there. It's he forgot his sticks. He comes back and he's bleeding on the drums. There's just there's a never ending chain reaction of things happening where you're just
Mhm.
like, there's no way this guy can get through this,
No.
and makes it all the more satisfying when he does.
And then the ending's pretty spectacular in itself.
Yeah.
It's just,
Oh, yeah.
And then it ends so well, doesn't it? It's like,
Oh my God, I'm getting chills thinking of it right
I
now.
know.
I've never seen an ending like that. That is what really exhilarated me, is the fact that is the moment where you have that battle with yourself of, is this guy right or wrong? He is wrong, but and they're both saying "fuck you" to each other, like literally and figuratively, but they're also both in sync.
Yeah.
And it's just absolutely perfect.
And also they're doing it in public, aren't they? They're saying "fuck you"
Oh,
in
yeah.
public.
Yeah.
And and this is all that it's ever been about. But however, the egos are still coming through.
My God.
It was a ride. It was a ride. And
Did you go to Sundance?
I didn't know. The thing was, I was working so hard at this company. It was crazy because I went from having supervised 2 music films, which I supervised because I was a manager of the composer and nobody knew what to do with the music. And I'm like, you're going to have to license that. And they're like, really? Oh, what do you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'm the music supervisor. So there were just so many movies. I turned up at this company to help set up the music department, and I walked in and there was a hard drive, and they said, okay, and these are the 15 movies you're working on now. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, here with the music. And again, I need to give a shout out to the guys, Chaz Barsamian and Megan Persons, who are my business partners now, who strangely enough are both lawyers in my music company, because they were the ones that helped get through the legal stuff of the song in the film in Whiplash where there was the trouble. So they were a huge help, and it shows that you need a big team of people. And in music, licensing and everything, lawyers are very important because, everything has to be done. And with music, the dangerous thing about music is if I sign a contract with a film, there's all these indemnifications, right? So if something goes wrong, I can't make them pull the film. But if you use a song in a film that isn't cleared, Disney can be told to take Frozen out of the cinemas.
Oh.
Cease and desist. Get
Wow.
it down. So it's the most dangerous thing in the world. So I have 2 great business partners in my company, Exit Strategy, who, we formed a great bond when we were working on so many films together, me doing the creative, them doing the business side of it. And it was a baptism of fire, but we thrived off it and, are better for it. So, so I didn't go to Sundance, which was really sad. It would have been lovely. But I saw it at a friends and family kind of screening, which was really, really good.
Oh, wow. That's in, looking at your 2014, you had your hands full for sure.
Yeah. And there's some things because I was overseeing the whole thing, and often there was nobody there that could do this. We had some interns who are now supervisors and gone on to really good things. A lot of the interns we had, but because it's so dangerous, making mistakes in music, it was very hard for me to take my hands off anything.
I can imagine.
And it was quite stressful. But again, those are the ways you learn, aren't they? Imagine working for Netflix. You probably got 50 times that much work on your plate, or Amazon. All
right, guys, I am going to shut up because I can go on all day, and you guys need to ask a few questions and everything.
I wanted to do an aside here because you brought up Mike Post, and might as well go ahead and go through a lot of these TV shows that he did. These separated into 2 big groups on this. One, I believe it's like if he did any kind of composing on any particular episode, that's where he's credited. And then I think he's the main composer on some other stuff. But I'm missing a few series here. But Greatest American Hero is on there. Hill Street Blues, Hardcastle McCormick, Riptide, Stingray, the Latter Day Columbos that were in the late 80s and 90s, Cop Rock. Which was an all-time TV experiment that just didn't work. Wise Guy. He also did Quantum Leap. And then he did a bunch of other stuff here. But then in the other section of this, where it looks like he's sort of the main composer. So there's A-Team.
Yeah, but these are theme songs, aren't they?
I believe so. And he's because he's shown credited on every episode, right. So I'm assuming that's what it is. So a lot of the stuff that I just mentioned, like Greatest American Heroes on here, Hill Street Blues, Magnum PI. He also did Quantum Leap, Wise Guy, Hunter, Silk Stockings, Doogie Howser, MD. LA Law, News Radio, the Rockford Files.
That theme song is one of my favorites. Can't hum it because you have to pay royalties, but it's just brilliant.
Dragnet, NYPD Blue, and then Law and Order.
Jesus
that's
Christ.
The big one. That's the big, like, boom! Like, after all of that, it's Law and Order. He's credited on 405 episodes of the original.
He did the doom doom.
Yeah.
Yeah. The easiest money he ever made.
No doubt.
The amount of music that man has on network TV. I mean, seriously, he's got to be one of the most successful musicians of all time.
Oh, no doubt.
Sure. Do you know him, Andy?
No, God.
Oh, you need to get to know him.
So what would you say to Mike Post? It's like, oh my God, I hear he leaves golf matches in his helicopter because he has. I mean, but you can see why Tim Simonet. You see, I mean, can you imagine just getting in with somebody like that and then it not happening because of? It's incredible, but incredible. I mean, what a career Mike Post has had, and just amazing. How can he write that much music? This is what I always think for a composer. They're pouring out these new melodies and ideas. They can't rip anybody off, right?
Right.
How do you do it? I mean, can you imagine I'm sitting down before a film thinking, God, I got 15 songs I have to replace or clear. And a composer's thinking, I've got 60 minutes of music to write.
Mm.
Yeah.
What if the muse has gone on holiday or something, or has COVID? What happens then?
Yeah. There's a thing that I've been noticing recently where a movie will come on from the 90s or something like that, and I'm like, I don't hear music like this anymore. Why is that? And it's because the composer has died, unfortunately. But like, I'm like sitting there going, they used to do a lot of these composers that were running around at one point. They're not copying other people, but they do kind of copy themselves in a way, a kind of a branding type of thing. And I think they have a lot of themes in their head that they can move in other directions. James Horner was one of these guys that I felt like was like this. And I was the other day, it was a movie that was on, and I was like, that sounds like so-and-so. And sure enough, it was. And I was like, yeah, you don't hear that music anymore. So I think that's what happens with these people. A lot of times, it's just like they're constantly finding new branches from where they start. When they had a big theme at one point, and now they're just finding new ways to do that theme.
And there's a word they use quite a lot: homage.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that sounds like Elmer Bernstein. Oh, it's an homage.
Yep.
Nice.
But it is a tough job, and it's incredible. And there's a person you need to speak with. Is Bear McCreary, who did Animal Crackers.
Yeah.
What a guy he is. I mean, God, so meticulous. He does these things. How this guy has the time in the day, I do not know. He's got a kid and everything. He Us got to send you this thing he did. He breaks down his score cues after he's done a big film, and he writes these sort of almost essays on every cue about what inspired it, what, where it came from, what sounds he used. And I looked at this thing he'd done, and he's done it on quite a lot of his films. And I thought to myself, my God, I mean, they belong in the Library of Congress, these things, because it's just absolutely incredible. And he's such a lovely, humble person. And he's so brilliant. He's just so brilliant. I mean, you should really, if I can help, I will help. You need to get him on, because he's such a great storyteller and he's so talented. And I really don't know if I only got to know him through Animal Crackers. I don't know if I know anybody more dedicated to his craft that I know, more than Scott even, who, bleeds sketching and everything.
Wow.
Bear is so thorough, and he's done so many. He'll be able to talk about this different styles, sea shanties that he did in Black Sails, and the amazing theme song he wrote for Black Sails, and then he does something else. So,
I think we have actually discussed talking with him at some point.
Sure, yeah. We'll track him down.
Yeah, you track him down. He can't refuse you guys.
He can't. You're right. Here's another thing. Does this ever come up? Let's take an easy one here. So, like, obviously, if you're doing, like, let's say a romantic comedy or whatever, and let's say the director has no idea about the content of Every Breath You Take, which is considered as, an all-time love song, quote unquote. Do you ever have any input on that type of thing where you tell them, or do you just kind of casually mention it, where you're like, this song isn't really about the thing that you're putting in the movie?
Yeah, I mean, there are times like that, but it's more often than not, it's like, you do realize that this song has been used 17,000 times.
Yeah.
Spirit in the Sky is in every Vietnam movie.
Yeah, and what's that one? Journey, Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah.
Even he said, I had to try and clear Don't Stop Believing for a film called The Losers, Joel Silver film. I wasn't supervisor. My friend Amane Rama was supervisor on that. But had to try and get a quote for Journey. And I was saying to the producers, look, there's press stating that the person that wrote this said that he'd never once, if he ever hears this song again, he's going to kill somebody, right? He's sick of it. It's over. He's done with it. And in the end, it gets to sort of Jimmy Iovine and the head of the studio, doing the deal for an awful lot of money. So usually, more than, you do realize what this song is about, it's more about, you do realize that everybody's used this.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't care, and sometimes they do care. And does it really matter? But I kind of think sometimes it doesn't matter, but if you're using it as a really important song in the film, I think it really matters, because it's always trying to find, for me, it's almost more exciting breaking a song that no one's heard than using something, it just gets lazy. I mean, I don't want to go into the film Us, because I heard you talk about Us. You did a whole thing on Us, and I thought that Get Out was one of the best films I've seen for I don't know how long. Just thought it was amazing. And I thought Us was The Emperor's New Clothes. I detested it. And I know that you guys didn't, and I know that there's elements of it that are amazing, but I heard them talking about the music, and everybody, obviously using Fuck the Police is great, but, so everybody going, oh my God, he did this and that. And I'm not dissing that film in any way, because I justify it by saying that Get Out is one of the greatest films I've seen for years, right? I absolutely loved it, okay? And I didn't like the premise of Us when I heard about what it was about. I didn't like the trailer when I saw it. I think the acting's great. I think the way it's shot, it's a really good film. But I just found things annoyed me,
Yeah.
So many things annoyed me. And again, there's a lot of homage in that film. And,
Oh yeah, no kidding.
I don't know. I don't know what my point is here, but I just found, I don't know. I think sometimes the use of songs and things can be. I didn't like some of the music in that film. And again, this will sound real sour grapesy, and who the hell am I to ever say that? This is my personal opinion as a lover of film and everything,
Mm-hmm. Are you saying that the songs that they used were not good, or are you saying that the placement of the songs or the meaning of the songs were not good?
It felt to me like, okay, now I can have whatever I want. I'm going to use all of this. Okay. That's
I can see that. Yeah.
That's what it kind of felt like. And I don't mean, hey, were I in that position? I'm quite sure that's exactly what I would do. I've always wanted to use this song. I've always wanted to use that. So again, I'm not trying to diss anything here. It's my personal opinion. And sometimes a director will say, I really want to use this song. And I'm thinking to myself, but, this is exactly what somebody would kind of expect here. Can we not try and find something else? And again, it's not my film and it's an opinion. And I've been wrong so many times when people have said, oh, that was the best song on the thing. And I'm like, okay, I wouldn't have actually picked that. So it's just an opinion. And that's why it's so difficult. But I don't know. I just find when the Stone song sounds amazing. Well, yeah, of course it sounds amazing because it is amazing and it sounded amazing for 50 years because it's an absolute classic.
Right.
But, if you find an obscure Creedence Clearwater Revival song, for example, that somebody's like, I've never heard that, and it opens up, to me, that's really exciting. That's the real thrill.
That's sort of what I think Tarantino does.
Oh God! I mean, he is just amazing. I mean, I was trying to think of some of my favorite uses of songs. I mean, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Stuck in the Middle, Stealers Wheel. In that scene, and it's a juxtaposition. It's exactly what you don't expect. And most of the music I love in film are things you don't expect. It's wrong, and you don't want a beautiful song in. Is it a beautiful song? Well, it is because it's kind of lilty, and he's even dancing to it, isn't he? He's like standing there dancing.
Yeah.
Michael Madsen is just sort of, just about to slip the guy, and he's like, I'm stuck in the middle. And he uses them amazingly. Son of a Preacher Man, Dusty Springfield is used in Pulp Fiction when John Travolta's in the house and she's getting ready, and it's just amazing. Just the acting's amazing, and you think they're going to dance to it or something, and then it stops and they leave. Yeah. So it's just kind of there in a way to pad out the scene, but it's magnificence, isn't it? Because it's so beautiful. And I don't mean that it's there to pad out the scene, because that's an insult. He's just brilliant at the way he picks it. And sorry, go ahead.
No, you can hear that. You cannot hear that Steelers Wheel song without thinking of that scene.
No.
And weirdly, it's the same for me, even though I know Barrett and a bunch of friends of mine heard the Pixie song on Fight Club before Fight Club, but that song at the end of Where's My Mind at the end of Fight Club is burned into my brain as that movie's song at this point. And I think if you can do it that way, then you're doing something special.
But those are the dream moments you see, and those don't happen. A lot of the time we're putting music into bars that is, it's just, is this going to get in the way with the dialogue? No, it's just got to be something that's in the background. But to be able to find those songs for like a montage scene or something, that to me, when I'm from the music industry, and the sum of the parts of when a song works with an image is blows your mind. And probably the biggest one for me is The End by The Doors at the beginning of Apocalypse Now. And It's the opening scene of the film, and it's called The End. And it's like, what do you think's going to happen, guys?
Yep.
And
Yep.
it gives me shivers, and it's just amazing. And then there's another one. Have you seen Aguirre, Wrath of God by Werner Herzog?
I have.
So I love Werner Herzog. I love twisted things. I love Lynch. I love Herzog. I like things that are wrong. And you have Machu Picchu, right? And apparently the cast was saying to him, what are you doing? Why aren't you shooting Machu Picchu? We've come all this way through the jungle. You forced us to walk here, and you're not even showing it? He goes, I'm not interested in Machu Picchu. I just want the woods, right? And Klaus Kinski, I've heard him on interviews. They said, "Did you threaten to kill him on that film?" He goes, "No, it was on Fitzcarraldo, not that one."
Yeah,
And he said, "But on that one, I was so pissed off because we'd walked for 21 hours, turned up at Machu Picchu, which you weren't going to film, and there was no food."
Yeah.
And he said, and I was sleeping on a raft or something. Oh, that was probably Fitzcarraldo. But anyway, but the music in that film, so you've got this amazing vista of these, and people dressed in 15th century costumes, a lot of people, not CGI. These are real people, hundreds of people carrying somebody on a sort of thing down the mountain. And then this 70s electronica music comes in by a band called Popol Vuh. And it's just so wrong that it's absolutely perfect. I mean, it's my favorite piece of music to picture I've ever seen, I think.
I would, obviously we'll won't be able to talk to Klaus Kinski anymore, but I would love to hear how in the world Werner Herzog and Klaus Kinski continued making films with each other, even though they hated each other apparently. And it's crazy, it's Aguirre and Fitzcarraldo are easy to to confuse because they are in the jungle for the most part in both of them. And he must have been a madman to have done Aguirre and wanted to do Fitzcarraldo after that. Oh yeah, and by the way, let's lift an entire boat over a mountain.
Yeah. Why? You'd be like, why? Why are we doing this? Can you not do something else? Isn't there special effects and things that people use?
Right.
Let us move this boat.
Yeah.
That's my Herzog. It's so good.
There's a clip of Kinski on Letterman, right? How could you?
Oh wow! I didn't even know he did Letterman.
There's a clip of Kinski on Letterman, and Letterman. There's a story he tells, but Letterman's saying, "So you've worked with him on 2 films, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "And you hate the man, right?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." And he said, "Would you ever work with him again?" He goes, "Of course." He said, "Of course." He said he phones me up at like 1 a.m. Of course, it's 1 a.m. Probably hasn't spoken to him for years. And he says, "I have this crazy idea." And he's like, "Yeah." And so he's telling a story about Fitzcarraldo. You've got to watch this clip on YouTube of Kinski on Letterman. He's telling this story about Fitzcarraldo, and he's saying, "Yeah, and I'm like going down these rapids, and there's no security people there. There's nobody to stop me drowning." And he goes, "Werner's in a speedboat. He's fine, right?" And he says, "And I'm tied to this thing." And he goes, "And it got so dangerous that I had to cut my costume at the back." And he goes, "And Werner's saying, 'Don't do it like that. Do it like this.'" He goes, "Who directs people at a time like that?" And he said, "And I'm thinking to myself, shut up or I'll throw you into the piranhas and they'll eat you in 30 seconds. And he looks at David Letterman. He goes, "Are you okay?" And David Letterman goes, "Yeah, this is just kind of an interesting story." It's just amazing. And those are the sort of people, aren't they? I mean, you can't do greatness without being slightly twisted. I don't think there's Herzog's pushing these people to the limit, like Whiplash.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about. He cares about. He obviously cares about human beings, but he's gonna get what he wants. That film cost $300,000.
Unreal.
Aguirre. I mean, Fitzcarraldo probably cost less. and I think they were making it over 4 years.
Jesus.
It's unreal.
Wow.
I mean, but you just amazing films with no money and very difficult to make. I mean, imagine if a studio had made Fitzcarraldo, it would have been in the hundreds of millions, wouldn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Jesus. That'd be like the plot of Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time we have left with you, but just to touch on a few highlights, and if you want to say, oh, but you're skipping this, by all means, talk about that movie. But some of the other ones that stand out on your credits, Super, which is James Gunn.
Oh yeah,
was an early one for you. Were you just kind of getting into the whole thing at this point? Was there anything memorable about Super?
Yeah, that was crazy. And I think Liz Gallagher really supervised that. What was my credit on Super?
It says music consultant.
Yes. Okay. So Liz Gallagher, who's a wonderful music supervisor, was supervising that. And because I was head of music at the company we worked at, I was kind of overseeing it. And it was to me, it was a very scary phase because there was so much music flying around.
Mm-hmm.
And we went down for a meeting with James Gunn. And again, he's one of those people that has great ideas and he's pushing everything. He's just pushing everything almost to the limit. And I remember it being we got out of the meeting and it was like, whoa, we've got a lot of work to do here. Right? So, yeah. I mean, and I liked the film and I thought, it was the people that were in it. It was just a great cast and everything. But I remember my real memory of that was it was a lot of sharp deadlines. It was stressful. And yeah. Not, a lot of films are stressful. But it was stressful because everything was moving so quickly, and there was so much stuff flying around that that was really my memory of that. And it was early days at the company. So, but he's he's gone on to great things as well, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you have a different kind of credit here, I will mention it. End of Watch is the next one that shows up. Executive in charge of music, but uncredited on that. Yeah, and sort of wanted to know what that was all about.
Again, so that is kind of because the company I worked for had invested money. They own the score of that movie, and Susan Kent was the supervisor on that. So that's very much very much kind of just overseeing the project from a musical point of view and mopping up anything that falls through the cracks. So I wasn't very hands-on creative with that at all. I really loved that film. I thought it was a really good film. And I just loved everything about it, really. But yeah, so my real role on that was just as running the sort of support team behind what was going on.
Music services, cutting edge for Side Effects, the Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah, that one I have very little to do with. Again, it was because I say I had very little to do with it. It's just really back office stuff, making sure everything is organized properly and being available to help if anything is needed, songs and everything. If the supervisor needs help dealing with that, but it's very much we are the music department. As I say, my business partners, Chaz and Megan, who were at Cutting Edge then, would have been doing a lot. They would have been doing the composer agreement and things like that. So we may well have been doing all of the licensing of the songs. That's possible as well. I would have been overseeing that.
Mike Flanagan's Oculus.
Yes. Well, this was an interesting one because I actually suggested the composers, the Newton brothers, for this. A lot of these horror films, I love horror films, but there's often very little music in these films.
Yeah.
So it's really sad because I don't think he's ever used a supervisor again. And obviously the Newton brothers have stuck with him throughout this whole thing, this great trip that he's been on. And the only thing I really did on this, which I was very proud of, is I'd become friends with Paul Oakenfold, who was a big DJ. Him, right? So So I become friends with him, and he's a big Chelsea soccer fan, okay? And he's got a house that overlooks the Hollywood Bowl. And he was telling me when he took the house, he said the realtor was trying to not let people see that the Hollywood Bowl was behind because they'd be worried about it. And he saw this and thought, oh my God, I can watch all the gigs. So he loved it. But I said to Mike Flanagan, I think because we're dealing with mirrors all the time and it's all very warped and everything that's going on is very weird, I said it would be great for the end credits to get Paul Oakenfold to do something with a score cue and mess with it and mix it and remix it and turn it into this kind of very odd piece. Because I was always trying to get original songs written at Cutting Edge or something different that we might be able to launch a single from or something. And he said to me, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he said, but I like the sound of it. And he said, so if it's not going to cost a lot of money to try this out, I'd love to try it. So we did it. And usually I've learned this since, you'll play something to somebody when you get something written fresh. And they have to be able to give notes because it's never exactly how they want it. But this cue, I gave it to him and he cut it in. And he just said, this is just perfect. He said, I love it.
Nice.
So it worked out really, really well. And as I say, that's really unusual that it happens like that. But I think, again, it's great that he gave me the opportunity to try it. And I've been working with the Newton brothers for quite a while before that. I kept trying to get them onto films because they were so talented, but there were also two of them.
Mm-hmm.
So when things got really hairy and deadlines got really tight, they'd go off and work on scenes on their own and then bring them together and mix them together. But I think they've done everything he's done to date since then.
Yeah.
And he's done, it's amazing. And I loved that film. I mean, that's one of the films where you read the script and you love the script and you think, how are they going to do this?
Yeah.
I was thinking, I was like, how is this going to work? Because it's a horror film about a mirror.
Yeah. It's true.
I mean, how do you pitch that? And I mean, it was just so good. And obviously in all these films, the acting's always got to be amazing, but it's such a good film. I love that film.
And then I imagine your experience on Chef was a lot like End of Watch.
Yeah, I mean, again, there was a creative supervisor on that. I had very little to do, and that was getting towards the end of my days at Cutting Edge. So I was didn't have very much to do on that at all.
Yeah.
It's probably why I was uncredited.
I personally haven't seen El Chapo, but you are heavily credited on that. So is that something that you that's a memorable experience?
Yeah, I mean I loved that because I think it's brilliant. It was one of these, Netflix had recently started realizing that Americans could handle TV shows in foreign languages and want to watch them, which growing up in England, we always used to get French and Italian films from the video shop. So we were all very used to that sort of world. And I think in America, it was kind of a bit weirder. So working on El Chapo, they shot all 3 seasons at once in Colombia because it was too dangerous to shoot it in Mexico. Because of what it was about. Can you believe they went to Colombia because it was too dangerous to do?
Yeah.
How about Canada?
Yeah. I'm sure you could find some places that are like Mexico and Canada.
Yes.
Yeah. So so the crazy thing about that was that the music was flying from all over the place. And again, the thing is, I'm not a Spanish person, so what I did on that one was I didn't want to give up the opportunity because, to be honest, if genre music and everything, you can pick it up pretty quickly. The rules of the game are the same, so if you don't happen to be the biggest sort of classical music boff, you can very quickly research the stuff that you're working with, and you're reaching out to people saying, I need a lot of music that sounds like this. I hired a guy to help me, Josh Norek, because he's been a music supervisor and is a Spanish guy, and I said, so let's you be my partner on this. and helped me with the different types, norteña and cumbia music and everything that we're going to be using. And he was a great help because he knew the world of Latin music, and more importantly, how to clear the music, because a lot of it signed to major labels. We had tiny budgets. At first, we had a big budget, but they wanted to use a big song, which took up most of the budget for the 3 seasons, because, again, we were shooting they shot 36 episodes at the same time, which I don't think anybody would ever do again.
Yeah, imagine.
And it was, but I loved it because I love the music. I love all of the music because it's so, so much of it's parties, fiestas, and everything. And I just love the family culture of the Hispanic world. When I used to go to Madrid and places, just the family thing is just so beautiful, and how a father will dance with a daughter. I mean, it just doesn't happen in my world. I'll never dance with my daughter. I'm quite sure of that. Unless it's on TikTok. Maybe I'm wrong.
There you go.
But I really loved El Chapo because I think it's an excellent show. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but I'd say if you like Narcos, try and watch it, because it's very gritty and it's very real. And the acting is fantastic. He's very believable as Chapo. And I'm very proud of that show because I really do. I think it did pretty well for Netflix, and it was Univision as well. And I knew quite a lot of Hispanic people who'd say to me, "Oh my God, you worked on that show!" And it was like, yeah. But I'm very proud of that because it was a lot of work, and it stood me in good stead because everybody on the show was really lovely. I mean, you work on films and shows where, you get people, I suppose it's all things in life. When the going gets tough, they start screaming and looking to blame people. Whereas you work on other things where it's like, okay, everybody's trying to fend off any problems that are going to happen. But when things happen, everybody's trying to solve them. So it was like a family on that show, and the showrunners were great, and everybody was really respectful. The tough thing for me was my budgets were awful.
Yeah, I imagine so.
I had no money, and it's very difficult because if I have to recreate music, I had to recreate quite a lot of music for that show, which I did with the music editor, because I'd need 5 musicians, to play at a party, live music. So you've got to pay everybody, and it was very difficult because the budget was so small. But I honestly believe, hand on my heart, that we did a great job. Everything was true to its region in Mexico, because there were everybody I was sending music to, and I had the help of Josh as well and the music editor. Everything was true to the region, which is very important and respectful. Yeah. And I think we did an amazing job, and I loved it. I really loved it.
All right. Well, hey guys, do you have anything else that you would like to ask? I need to watch more of the movies that you're involved with, Andy, because some of these I have not heard of before.
Well, I want to ask you, do you have any Serenity stories?
No.
Have you seen that movie? It's bonkers, right?
Yeah, it's bonkers.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I don't have, I mean, I was trying to be music supervisor on that film, and it didn't happen because I think it was done out of England. But no, I haven't seen that. I mean, I don't have stories, but it.
All right. Okay. I got 2 questions left, and then, you've been so gracious with your time. I watched some of this Netflix series, Sneakerheads.
Oh, yeah?
And the music in that is unlike anything that I've seen. Well, I can't say unlike anything, but very specific to that sort of genre. And it's fantastic. What has that process been? You've done a few Netflix projects, but how has that been with Sneakerheads?
Well, Sneakerheads was, I was brought in because the music supervisor they had been, let's say, let go. And I came in kind of late in the game, and the editor, David Blackburn, called me in. And it was basically, they were panicking about the music because, again, the budgets were tiny, but they wanted some big songs as well. So I came in, again, another amazing family of people. It was so beautiful to walk in and everybody's really respectful. And I'm like, okay, I've got to watch this. Okay, now I'm going to send you a list. And they're like, a list? Oh, hallelujah. A list with songs that we need to replace and everything. So, I mean, they were just very happy to get some organization. But I said to them, okay, we'll try and get 2 or 3 big songs in the show. We got Aloe Black, the one we ended up having, which was co-written by Elton John, because it's a, you know, using that melody.
Yeah.
But basically, I said we're going to have to find unknown artists because we don't have a big budget, which to me is really exciting. There's nothing wrong with that. I said, but you do find on shows you need familiarity. So often, you know, if you're setting a scene in 70s at a disco, it'd be nice to play I Feel Loved by Donna Summer, okay, but then maybe that's overused. But you know what I mean? You're setting the scene and everybody feels comfortable and they're like, I'm here now. So we had to find a lot of unknown music, but part of a job of a music supervisor is having great contacts of people. There are people called sync reps who rep indie bands. So they'll sign them up and they'll pitch their music to film and TV placements. So I have a whole network of people like that who I can go to and say, I have this much money for this scene, send me your music. So I'll get sent 100 cues for one scene, for example. And I have to go through it and I make a short list and I say to the director, in my opinion, these are the best 5. How many do you want me to send? He might say 10. Send him 10 tracks that could work. And he kind of picks them. And it's usually the ones you think it's going to be. Or I cut them in. I cut songs into scenes and send it to them. But I think the music on that show, I'm very pleased with that as well, because there's hardly any known bands. I had to phone a lot of the bands up and say, people are hitting me up asking where they can get the music. You need to get your music out so that they can start hitting you up on Spotify and everything. So, and that's always a nice place to be because you're really taking stuff from the street and giving it life. And then I've had people say to me before, oh, you've got this song of mine, an unsigned artist in this film, and I've now had 100,000 hits on something, you know, and does it turn into money? Well, sadly, you know, we're trying to change all of this where people get paid more money for being on Spotify and everything and make things fair. But at the end of the day, this is the game they're in. So exposure's everything. Can I ask you, what did you think of Sneakerheads? Did you like it?
I did a lot. And this is the best feeling is getting into a show or a movie that is not about anything that you're interested in. I could give a shit about sneakers.
Right.
But the way that this is presented, the performances in particular, and the vibe that it's gotten, I think a lot of that has to do with the music, is very comforting. You know what I mean? Like I think that's just it puts you in such a sense of ease that it's easy to get into that sort of lifestyle and to kind of, you know, empathize with those characters. So I like it very much.
And it's very good acting, and it's silly funny, isn't it? I mean, it's not trying to be too pretentious. And I have to give a shout out to the composer, Haim Mazur, who basically his job is he did a lot of hip hop kind of cues, score cues, and sometimes he's got vocals on them. So sometimes you think it's a song. So he did a really great job of keeping the pace going as well. And if I'd love this to get picked up, because we had, you know, we were playing with having a Chicago song in one love scene, which was so wrong for the show, but it was just brilliant. And I would love to, I said to them when I came on it, I said, please, let's just not just use hip hop, right? Let's use soul and jazz and other things. But they were also open-minded. It ended up that we kind of mainly used hip hop on this one, but I think it was for the right reasons. It was because it set the vibe. But I know if we can if Netflix picked this up and we got another season and we had some more money, we could make so many jokes out of music in some of these scenes with familiar songs that it would be so. I just know it would be one of my favorite jobs ever, because it's like we were talking about before with songs at the end. The song becomes almost the scene. Even the Aloe Black songs used pretty well when they're going, I'm the man, I'm the man.
Your Song thing. Oh, no, yeah.
Because it's you remember it and you like it. And also, Dre is friends with Innie Clemens, one of the producers. They're very tight. So the hip-hop world and Top Dog Records and everything, it was funny because you get a lot of the times when you're working on a film, somebody will say, oh, my friend's Prince's mum. And you're like, okay. Oh, not even Prince's mum. My friend's Prince's mum's cleaner, right? And you're like, okay. And then they're like, so we can use Prince. And you're like, well, yeah, but Prince doesn't necessarily own the music. It's Warner Brothers. We all know about that. So it's not very easy. But on this one, the producers were like, oh, if we want to try and use something by Dre, we can get in touch with him. Or if we want to use this, we can get in touch with him. And they were just amazing because they would put me in touch with these people, the big shots from the labels and everything, and they would just stay on it and help me. And it was incredible. And I also know these guys have such good contacts with so many people that the cameos that would be in this show would just be ridiculous. So I really hope Netflix pick it up. I think Netflix's worry is that it only appeals to sneakerheads. And my thing is, if it was marketed more and it breathed and it lived and it got to another season, I think you could definitely have a big crossover thing, because I think people in England would love it. It's weird. It was number one in like Nigeria, South Africa. It was top 10 in 25 countries. I think, because it's the same as you. I was embarrassed to go to the mixes because of my shoes, right? I was like, I really was. I mean, I was like, Jesus. But they knew immediately. It was like, forget him. He's not one of us. But I it's just a fun show. It doesn't matter what it's about. And there's so much that we could do with it musically as well if we could move on. But I don't know. It's hard to tell.
God, I love the idea of using music as the joke, and the fact that you have your finger on the pulse of that, to where you're like, I want to use something completely the antithesis of what is going on visually here.
But it's that wrong thing again. It's what's wrong, isn't it? Because it's and it was the Stewie character. He's such a sort of divvy kind of guy, and everybody in that show, there's total respect. It's total. There's ethnicities in the show. It's all over the place. And everybody, even if somebody's a bit of an idiot, they're not an idiot. They're just funny. Right. They're different. And it's him. I'd love to get into the characters and think, what would she listen to? And what would he listen to? Or what would his dad listen to? And it's just stupid. It's just being able to use a song to knock you off guard in a way. And hopefully, lots of kids wouldn't know what the song was, but a lot of the viewers would know what it was. And they'd be like, again, it's using REO Speedwagon. Okay. There's a band and they wrote some good songs, but it's, when does that become a kind of a joke? Well, it's when it's in the wrong place, because the characters would never be listening to that.
Right. I have to stop. I would talk to you all day, but Jesus Christ, you probably have to go like pee or something. By the way, Jeremy is still here.
Yes, we forgot to do that every 15 minutes, but I was doing it in my head, so we're good.
Yep. Do you have any questions, Jeremy? I haven't.
No, you guys covered everything that I was planning to ask. I was just really enjoying listening. It was a fascinating, I guess, couple of hours for me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. I'm sorry I do go on a bit, but
no. I'm telling you. I'm going to call you tomorrow, and we're going to talk tomorrow.
Well, I'm coming to Nashville, and you guys are going to show me around. I'm telling you.
That's right.
We are.
Because Scott doesn't go out to bars and things, so
we will. When we finally can, we will totally take you out and around Nashville.
One thing that I've realized we've been doing a bunch of interviews all year. Is that I love it when our guest talks a long time, because it just gives us, it fills in the episode. They give me a lot of information that way, and I can find other questions to come off of that and everything. You have you usually have your like 5 or 6 questions that you write down, and then you're like, oh, that thing that person said right there, it gives me another question and another one and so on. And I love it when people talk. This is what we're here for, is to hear your stories and to learn from you and stuff. So I'm glad that you came on today.
Well, thank you. As I say, I really appreciate it. And I don't know if you've learned anything about music supervision, but
absolutely we have. We know.
It's absolutely nothing I knew about until today.
Well, that's good.
Andy, do you want to plug your Instagram or Twitter or anything like that, or your website?
Wow, if I even knew the handles.
Well, it's Exit Strategy is your company, is that right?
The website for Exit Strategy is alwayshaveanexit.com. And Exit Strategy Productions is Instagram.
All right.
And Twitter, I think it's my private one because I wouldn't dare speak for anybody else on Twitter. It's way too scary.
Twitter is scary.
I think it's just at the Rossandy1 is Twitter.
There we go.
Yes, we would like to thank Andy Ross for coming in and giving his time. That's going to do it for this week. If you want to go to SinCast presented by Cinemasins on Facebook, Cinemasins Twitter, Music Video Sins Twitter. We're also on SoundCloud and Discord. If you want to get on Discord, you can go to our Reddit page and find the link on the right side there, or you can go to Facebook and private message me, and I will give you a link there. That's going to do it for this episode. It's Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Share. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
All right.
My God. Nice to see everybody with their beautiful waveforms. Sexy waveforms, I would say. I don't feel like I'm out of line when I say they're sexy waveforms.
Mm-hmm.
You're not put that out there.
I
just want to, do with it what you will.
I was born in Liverpool. I'm going to get killed when I go back to England for saying this. I supported Liverpool until I was 10 years old, and then I moved to this town called Watford. And Elton John's club, and I started going with my dad to the games every week, and they were in the 4th division. And when I left that town, they'd been promoted every season in a row.
Really?
And they ended up 2nd in the top division to Liverpool.
Wow.
And that was a dream come true because I still love Liverpool. They're so in my heart. And I do because my grandparents and everybody loved Liverpool. And one time I actually went to a funeral in Liverpool for my uncle. And I was coming back on the train and I lived in Watford. And I must have been 11. And I walked down the train carriage through this first class section and there was this music playing really loud. And I thought, God, how are these people allowed to play their music this loud? It's disgraceful. And I came back and I came through the carriage again and I looked and I thought, oh, that looks like Craig Johnson, the footballer. And I thought, oh, that looks like Sammy Lee, the footballer. And I was in the Liverpool FC carriage. They were on their way to a game. And I ran through to my mum and said, get me a pen, some paper. And she had a pencil. So I went there and I spoke to the legendary Liverpool manager, Bob Paisley, who won so many titles. I think he won probably about 15 trophies.
Wow.
And he told one of the players to move and he sat me down at the table. And this won't mean that much to you, but it will mean something to people back home. I sat opposite Kenny Dalglish, who became a Liverpool manager, Alan Hansen, who became the Liverpool captain, and Bob Paisley. And I sat at a table with them while they passed around my little autograph thing. And I got all of the players' signatures. And this is a time when Liverpool were winning the league practically every season. And I sat there and I talked to them and they were so funny. I said to Bob Paisley, when you play Watford, how do you plan for it? And he went, Watford. He said, oh, we don't plan for games like that. And he told me he was only joking. But I mean, they were so amazing. And that's one of the highlights of my life, to see so many famous people in one place. And they're all legends. I mean, it's one of the greatest teams. It's probably one of the top 5 greatest teams in British football history.
Wow.
What was the big upset that Watford pulled off earlier?
Beating Liverpool 3-0.
They beat Liverpool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Liverpool undefeated all season.
Interesting. I don't know a lot about soccer. I have watched English Premier League a few times when it's been on, and I enjoy it. It's just not anything that gets me. I got to watch this or whatever. But there was I don't even remember what the video was. I don't even remember why I'm saying it, but it was before that happened. I was like, let's come up with something that's really improbable in a sporting event. And I was like, I'm tired of doing American sports. So I went to look at the English Premier League standings. And I saw that Watford was like really down far,
Yep.
And I saw that Liverpool was like way up at the top. And I was like, this is like Watford beating Liverpool and blowing in soccer. And then like 2 months later it happens, and there was like a Reddit thing going on. What was the video where they said that? And it was like a very amazing moment.
You're a soothsayer.
Yes. Yes.
but it was incredible, and for me it was bittersweet, because I wanted Liverpool to go the whole season undefeated, because only one team's done that, and that's Arsenal. And I don't love, we have this love-hate rivalry. I hate Manchester United, obviously. Mm-hmm. I have to.
Right.
But I wanted them to go undefeated, because Man United have never gone undefeated. So I didn't want Liverpool taking points. Watford taking points off Liverpool. But Watford were in so much trouble, ended up getting relegated anyway, so it didn't matter.
Right.
But 3-0 we beat Liverpool. I totally outplayed them. It was ridiculous. But
that's insane.
I don't want to stick on football, and I don't want to bore you with it, but there was one other time when it's one of the most incredible football things I've ever seen in my life, and I'll send you guys a link to it afterwards. I woke up one morning in LA, and at the end of a season, we have playoffs. So if you're trying to get promoted into the Premier League, you get into a playoff system. So Watford were in the semi-final of the playoffs against a team called Leicester, who ultimately went on to win the league at 5,000 to 1. Okay?
Right.
Which will never happen again. The odds will never be that high again for any team. So Watford were playing Leicester. We play it over 2 legs, so we play home and away. So I woke up late for the second leg of this game. I wake up late, and I'm like, I've overslept. I can't believe it. This is madness. I wake up, and Watford are tying, which means they will go through, okay, because they've scored more in the other leg, okay? So it gets to the last minute. We've played 48 games of the season. We're just about to get to the final. This guy from the other team dives in the penalty area. It's never a penalty, and the referee gives a penalty. And I think 48 games, somebody cheats, it's come down to this. And I thought, I can't believe it. I hate this game. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, right? And I've got up. The guy steps up that dived, took the penalty, our keeper saved it. It ricocheted back to the guy, he shoots again, the keeper saves it again. Somebody kicks it upfield. Everybody's going mad, the commentator's going mad, saying, oh my God, he's missed it. The Watford team run up the other end, down the wing, beautiful run, crosses the ball, this guy heads it into the middle, and Watford score. Something like 13 seconds after he missed that penalty, Watford scored at the other end. The crowd comes running on the pitch, the players run into the crowd. I'll send you the footage. I don't think there's been a better end to any sporting event anywhere in the world, and if you know of one, send it to me, please.
Were you waking up the entire neighborhood at that point at 6 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe it. And there's a video on YouTube of a commentator that's not allowed to show the game because they don't have the rights to the game, and it's just him. And that's better almost than watching the footage of the goal being scored, because the guy's going ballistic on live. TV. I don't believe what I'm seeing. Oh, I don't. Anyway, enough of the football because I know it's not something wicked.
Yeah, I
can do a
can't.
football podcast.
Yeah, I can't imagine it there being something like that. But like, I remember when Man United was like dominant for a while there, and they had that legendary coach, and I can't remember the name.
Alex Ferguson. Yeah, he was a legend, and they played amazing football. So it's hard to hate them. It's a fun hate.
But they would do that type of thing, right? Where it would seem like they were about to be beat, and then in extra time, they'd always find a way.
Always. You know what he called it? He called it squeaky bum time.
Oh my God, I'm going to use that so much.
Honestly, he said it on a live interview. He goes, I like to call it squeaky bum time.
I mean, it fits, right? I mean, it's insane. Like it even as a person who doesn't watch very often, I always would see these highlights. I'm like, how'd they do that? Why didn't they do that the whole game?
Oh, I know. They did it in the European Cup final. And Beckenbauer, who's one of the most famous football players ever, German player, won loads of World Cups. He was president of FIFA or something, and he Bayern Munich, which was always his team, were beating Man United 1-0, and they were in overtime. And he went from up at the top of the stadium down in an elevator with the trophy to take it to the field. And he said, I got out. Man United scored 2 goals in the last minute to win 2-1. And he said, I got out of the elevator, and the winners were on their knees crying, and the losers were running around the field. He missed the 2 goals on the elevator trip down because it was squeaky bum time.
He's an audio guy. He knows what he's doing. This isn't his first rodeo.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, we're good to go.
It's my last, though, probably.